I'm Don Ennis. Welcome back to Rise Up. It's been 3 months. Unbelievable. The pandemic has shut down Rise Up with Don Ennis, but we're back. And I'm very happy to be back with the biggest guest we've ever had. Mia Macy fought the Justice Department back during the Obama administration, and she won. What she did laid the groundwork for this week's huge decision, the landmark ruling by the Supreme Court that said that gay and transgender, and we mean lesbian, bisexual, queer, all the folks in between, all those workers in America are protected from discrimination. And lost in that entire battle, lost in the fight, are two people, one of whom we have here today. One is Amy Stevens. If Amy Stevens hadn't tried to get her rights from the Supreme Court, this wouldn't have happened. She lost her life in May, and we honor her today for her battle. She wanted to be herself at her job at a Michigan funeral home. And after telling her boss that she wanted to present as a woman, he fired her. And that's what led to the case on the Supreme Court this week, the ruling by Justice Gorsuch. And it allows for every American who's transgender, and we also think gay, bisexual, queer, lesbian, to basically be themselves at work. But none of that would have been possible had it not been for my first and only guest today, my first guest in months. Welcome, Mia.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
A little bit of Truman Show there.
There you go.
Mia, I want to apologize on behalf of all the journalists who have basically just looked past you and not realized. And there's also another transgender pioneer who also was the first transgender person to have their case heard before the Supreme Court, who was erased. But I'd like to know, first of all, would you tell us a little bit about what it must have felt like to see this wonderful ruling and not see your name associated with it?
It's interesting because my case has always had like my name in there, but I've always felt like the case is ours. And from Price Waterhouse to Diane Shore to Vandy Bethlen, those were all signature cases in their arena. And I stood on those shoulders to get to the height. The thing that's strange for me is I knew as we were going through the process for me, which was in 2011, 2012, and 13, that this would be successful at the Supreme Court level, if ever used. And I was told this will be used, like it'll be challenged. And then for the next like 4 or 5 years, I watched it in each district, in each appellate court, each superior court around the country started getting tested, and it kept winning. And I mean, we were like 71-0. And even with Amy's case, they won all the way through the process and continued to win, because it was not just good legal business. It was good legal writing, and it was the right thing to have happen. So when this happened with SCOTUS last week, I really thought people would see the groundwork.
Footprints, right?
Yeah. I thought they would see that, and so it was strange for me. Like all these groups started writing, and all these writers started writing about this, and I just assumed, that someone was going to mention it. But what she won, Amy won on Monday, was literally the test of Macy v. Holder. Mm-hmm. Title VII, does it apply? And to transgender workers and protections for transgender workers, and the definition of sex to include. The case that was for LGB rights and being homosexual at work came a year after my decision, where they applied the Macy v. Holder to LGBT and homosexuals. So it was interesting for me, of course, to see this happen, but it was really interesting that it was just forgotten.
Interesting is the key word there. I would say probably frustrating, probably
Yes.
annoying. Tell us a little bit, for everyone who doesn't know, why don't you walk us through what it was that Mia Macy versus Holder was? What was the case? And tell us where that ended in terms of beginning and to end.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry. It seems like we're doing this call by Zoom, folks. So sometimes there's going to be some technical issues. There you are.
There it is. Well, and at home, my internet is good.
That's
So
okay. We hear you and see you now.
thank you so much. So about 2010, I was given the opportunity and recruited by ATFE, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So as a detective with Phoenix Police Department, they had a job opening, ATFE. I applied, went through their background process, and we uprooted our lives and went to San Francisco. After I got the call, said, your background's complete, you're ready to start. So the Monday morning, we get to San Francisco, I call and let the contractor know, hey, I'm ready, background's done, I can start next week. The next day, I got an email that said, hey, we need your legal documents and everything social security card and everything, they need the updated ones. Because I had come out to my background and my contractor. They had known. And I literally wrote an email saying, in the process, I'm transgender, you met me as Charles, and you will see me as Mia. If this is uncomfortable, if this is something you don't want, let me know now before I move my life to San Francisco. And they sent back an email. We're the only female-owned, female-run contractor with the federal government and ATFE, and absolutely, you work for us. I don't care what anyone says. You're good. Don't worry about it. You're fine. And we're very supportive of LGBT rights. So your confidence is instilled. So when I got to San Francisco and she called and said, I needed your updated documents, I had already gone through and had a process. So I had a new birth certificate, social security, driver's license. And so when I gave those documents to them, she said she had to give them to her point of contact with ATF and let them know, here's the updated documents to get my new badge. I thought they sent me my W-2, my W-4, all my paperwork, W-9, all my paperwork to fill out. So my medical, what to sign up for. And so everything felt great. And that Friday, so Tuesday, I sent them the documents. And on Friday was the first government shutdown by the GOP with Obama. And it was the first time CNN's live, government's going to shut down at 10 p.m. tonight. And she called me at about 5 in the evening. So about 2 o'clock my time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And, but she was on the East Coast. And she tells me the government shut down. I don't even know if I have a job. All the contracts are gone. It's over. The budget's going to be cut and we don't have the position. So
oh my God.
Yeah, so like everyone, my heart and everything just sunk. We're in a different state, in a different city, and this was going to be my livelihood, my income. And when you leave a police department, you resign. It's not like you can just say, hey, do you have my old job back? There's a process you have to go through. Right. And so it wasn't going to be a process that I could just jump right back into. So they... at 10:01, Obama came walking out and said, the government's not going to shut down. We came to an agreement, last minute deal. Boehner and was standing on the podium. Everything's going to be good. And I was like, okay.
Everything should be good, right?
Yeah, we're great. So I waited till Monday morning and I emailed, nothing. Monday afternoon, I call. Tuesday, I go through the same process for a couple weeks. And they're not answering. They won't answer the phones. They won't answer the emails. They won't tell me anything. So I pulled up by the bootstraps. I wrote up my resume and everything that I needed to do. And I started going to job fairs. And in San Francisco, they had an LGBT job fair at their center. And I go around and I start talking, and there's San Francisco Police Department and different people. And they're like, what are you doing out here? You're more than qualified. I mean, you've been a detective for years. You've done all these different types of cases, and the experience that you have, you should talk to somebody. This doesn't sound right. So they had a table over at this little, like, it was like a third year college students, law students, and table they had set up to do some legal aid. And I went over and I talked to them, and they said, well, we can shoot some emails for you. We can send some. And yeah, let's get right on this. So they started the process of helping me out and sending emails, and got no response. So after a bit, they drafted up something a little more important than an email and sent that out, and still no response. And then finally they got a response back that said, like, basically, don't contact us. The jobs are gone. We don't know what we can do, but, sorry.
Go away. Basically telling you to go away.
And so it just was really weird. And I was like, well, I'm not going away. So I filled out the paperwork, and in California, you can fill it out through they have a state, like, EEOC office, Equal Opportunity Center, and then you have the federal EEOC. And because I was a contractor, no one could figure out who. Was I a state worker? Was I a federal worker? Who to send the process through? And it was funny, we sent it to both, and California was like, we're going to defer this to the feds because this is a federal issue. And then the feds picked it up, and at the first review process, well, throughout the review process, they never give you you were discriminated, you weren't discriminated. They just could say that there's evidence to show that you have merit to your claim. So I thought that was interesting, but I got a call after about 31 days, because the initial investigation is like 30 days. The lady goes, hey, listen, they're not talking to me. She's my investigator. She goes, they're not talking to me. I can't get anything from them. But what I can find out is that the job was never cut. The budget was never cut because it was a contracted position. So those are actually bid on and paid for 3 years out. So
they lied to you, basically.
Total lie. And they hired somebody.
Oh.
So we were like, okay, now we're angry. And they said, here's the problem. And the lady was really cool. She goes, I've been doing this for like 40 years or whatever. She goes, I've never said this to anybody, but I think they discriminated against you. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, but here's the problem. What you're claiming isn't covered.
Right.
And I was like, well, what do you mean? They fall under Justice Department. ATF is with the Justice Department. So that they should fall under civil rights and all the applicable.
Title VII, yeah.
Yeah, and she goes, well, unfortunately, trans isn't covered. And two, each department of the Justice Department has its own internal rules for enforcement of equality. And I was like, wait a second, so the Civil Rights Division has a different civil rights policy than the civil rights law that it goes out to investigate? And they were like, yeah, basically, yes. And I was like, wow. They said, well, what you are entitled to is an internal process. And we have 3 people from ATF that will come over and review this process. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem very biased or unbiased.
Yeah, unbiased, yeah.
Fair. And they were like, no, well, yeah, it is what it is. It's all you get. And I was like, wait a second. So I spent a whole career in law enforcement, and I spent my life enforcing the rule of law and, carriages of justice and the wheels of justice, and scales of justice and all these great words they use and phrases. But it doesn't apply to me. And they were like, no. And I said, so I would never get a day in court. And they were like, no, you're not entitled to one. And so
because of who you are,
of who I am and what I'm claiming. So I went through the EEOC appellate process because I was like, well, this isn't right. It should be covered. So we went through the process, and at the end, you see 5 commissioners. They review it, and they don't meet. They don't sit in a room like judges. They each independently get the appeal, and then they look at it, review it. and they only vote if one dissents. And in my case, it was 5-0. I mean, none of them dissented. It was unanimous that on the hood of the car the night before, we had to turn in the paperwork, the deadline. Because what's really weird is when you are the plaintiff in those processes, you have a deadline. Like you get 2 weeks to do something, or you have 72 hours to respond. Then they go away for 3 months, and then they shoot you back. You'll get served. It'll come official mail. You sign for it, and then you have 72 hours to respond. Get it to your lawyers, get it to somebody the legal, look at it, everything. So the process is really not plaintiff friendly anyway, and it really unfair. And I'm going through this process, like figuring this out. So the night before it was due, we were playing with the wording. The lawyer had been like telling us some like different words to put together. And we were going over them in the car as I was taking my wife to work. And I was like, it's got to be like change of sex and, changing of your gender. And they said something like conforming to gender norms. And I was playing with the wording, and my wife goes, okay, change of sex. I go, yeah. She goes like, change of gender. And I go, yeah. And she was like, doesn't conform to gender. And I go, doesn't conform to gender stereotyping. And she was like, that's it. So we had a marker in our car for moving. And I pulled out the Sharpie and I wrote that. And that's what's on the form. It says change of sex, change of gender, doesn't conform to gender stereotyping. Because they had originally said female.
Right.
On there, and female already protected by the
That's protected under the statute, yes.
Yeah, so that is what would become the decision of Macy v. Holder. They upheld the fact that one, change of sex, change of gender does not conform to gender stereotyping, covers being under Title VII under sex. It definitely is covered under sex. And this week it was upheld by the Supreme Court. That's what Amy was challenging in court, that definition. So
did it ever feel weird that you were fighting the Attorney General for the Obama administration, the first Black Attorney General, the first Black president, and a progressive administration as far as we mostly viewed him? Did that seem weird that you were fighting Holder?
It did until Tom Perez and from Labor, he was the Department of Labor secretary at the time, now he's the head of the DNC, and Obama himself, they needed it had to happen that way. I feel weird that it's Macy v. Holder because his name's attached. He's such a progressively nice guy, but he knows that because he was in the Justice Department, he did not have the power, though, to just say, we need to do this.
Yeah, you could just write it down. Yeah.
Yeah, but the process that was in place over ATF, he doesn't have the power. He didn't have the power to go and rewrite that, and what he could rewrite wouldn't be backdated and in effect for past things. So they knew where they stood, but they also wanted the backing. There was a lot of people that wanted Macy v. Holder to finally go through and have a case that was pretty spearheaded because it was a really clear and concise case. We had email evidence, because the stupidest thing you could do is screw over a detective. And I was like, I'm not really good. I won't paint. I can't do a lot of things well, but I can investigate and I can collect evidence.
Right, and that's your job.
Yeah, so what was really cool was I was entitled to a formal investigation. After winning Macy v. Holder, I was entitled to the investigation. And a year after Macy v. Holder, I actually won my case.
That was the big victory, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, that internally. So Macy v. Holder was like the world's victory. Mm-hmm. It put us finally in a way that was defined and allowed to be in that category of like existence.
Protected, yeah.
But I won my case personally, proving these 4 people actually did discriminate against me. Sending back emojis to each other through email and laughing and saying stuff about it. So it was really nice. So on my wall, I have the framed decision of Macy v. Holder, and I have the case the next year winning Macy my own. So, and I have the executive order because 2 years after, myself and a reporter, Chris Geidner, with BuzzFeed, and then now he's with SCOTUS, and an amazing writer.
Yes, he's great. I love Chris.
Yeah, he and I, so about every 8 weeks or so, he would write about Macy v. Holder and kept the fire and poking the administration because Obama administration was really hesitant. They wanted INDA. They had been sold this bill of goods by a lot of the nonprofits that is the only way to go. We're going to collect money and do that. But their priority was healthcare reform. So INDA got back-paged and sat on the back burner. So he was waiting to enforce it. So for almost 18 months to 21 months, nobody would enforce Macy v. Holder. It was on the books. Mm-hmm. And the administration, Labor Department didn't rewrite the rules. Nobody was enforcing it. And Chris and I, so I went around the country. I did interviews, Chris, and speaking gigs. Chris wrote articles. He actually literally asked the question at the White House press briefings. He asked the president, vice president, and kept on. And then about 22 or 23 months after they announced, the president said, well, okay, we're not going to get it to the Senate or on the House, because Boehner said it's never going to be on the floor.
Right.
It's never going to literally be voted on. So the Equality Act. Yeah. So I got the call and they said I could come to the White House. He was going to do the executive order, and he signed the executive order, and that was really, it was great. But at that moment, when I got to the White House, I noticed, because I had to take out a credit card. I had to pay for my plane, my hotel. No one puts you up or does.
No, of course not. It's all on your dime.
Yeah, and I got there, and I was the only person not representing a nonprofit.
An organization, yeah.
Yeah, they were all alphabet groups, I call them, or cold chicken. And they were all there, and they were nice and gracious and stuff to me. But I've had them literally, had one of their members of one of the national trans groups tell me to take a back seat and let them speak and let them do the talking. So for a long time, no one would interview me or talk to me. I was literally told to be quiet because I had said, I appreciate INDA. I love the idea of getting it on the books. But just as anything, it can be challenged in court. That's the whole point. They can pass a federal protection, then it will be challenged in court and go back up to SCOTUS. But Macy v. Holder, the Title VII portion is locked down. It's pretty freaking explicit. They don't need to go back and add homosexual or trans or whatever, because at the heart of it, we are human beings.
Right.
And what makes us are human. And this is literally what Gorsh just said on Monday.
Yep.
I mean, he took it down to like a kindergarten level.
He did, didn't he?
Homosexuality and being trans. And I don't give a shit. Or I don't care.
It's okay. It's YouTube and public access. It's okay. Try to hold yourself in.
Yeah. So, but I don't care how he got to that decision. The fact of the matter is, the insanity is, they wrote something really special in Macy v. Holder. And the idea was, and this was written by, she's a brilliant attorney. And I love that she came up with this. But the idea was, if you have a Christian bookstore on Friday and you have 5 employees, and over the weekend on Saturday, they go out with some friends and go to the synagogue and they convert to Judaism. Monday morning, they come in and say, hey, we converted to Judaism. And the employer goes, you're fired of the bookstore. It is clearly religious discrimination. They were fired for their religion.
Converting to Judaism, yes.
Doesn't matter where they worked, doesn't matter what they were doing. The fact of the matter is you fired them for being a certain religion. There is no difference if you own a bookstore and you have 5 male employees on Friday, and on Saturday, wish it was this easy, you'll change sex. And then Monday came in and said, now we're female.
Right.
even though we all know as trans, they were
No,
already
it's not going to happen, right?
female, but it doesn't matter to, you know, I don't go into the details and give people a lesson on being trans, but the idea is the same idea. Of course, that is related to sex. It is totally related to gender. It is simplistic in every form. You could explain it to third graders, to 60-year-olds. You might not agree with the decision, but the fact of the matter is the law is pretty locked in and inclusive. So they tried to go back and dissent, of why it wasn't written in the 1960s. And which is so funny to me because, they try to think that, like, I guess trans individuals just became a
Popped
thing.
up. Yeah, we just showed up all of a sudden.
Yeah, they put on a Jerry Springer show and there we were. And it was like, oh my God. And Jerry Springer was brilliant because he found the first trans, like Bigfoot,
He created us, yes. He created us in a test tube.
Yeah, so which, by the way, I won't even go into how.
No, let's not go there. Let me ask you a question, though.
But that was the.
Finish your point, but I want to ask you a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. So for me, going back to your original question, and for reporters and stuff, was it's not so much as a disappointment ever. It will never be a disappointment in people forgetting who I am. I forget who I am sometimes. But the thing I will always be disappointed is the merit of what that did. Because when you erase Macy v. Holder in the argument, and you skip and cherry pick like what cases you want to talk about, you clearly are erasing Vandy sacrifices. You're Diane.
Vandy Beth Glenn, yeah.
And all the way back down
in
the Price Waterhouse. And,
yep.
and the people that, did this. I have personal issues, like, it ruined my career. It's devastating to your career to go through this. And I can't play in that arena anymore. And wasn't allowed to. So I have personal side of it. So it is a very personal attack because I made a sacrifice. And there's about 5 of us that are responsible for that case. Amy, Diane, myself, Vandy. There's like 5 of us. More people have walked on the moon than did what we did. And, only one person could actually change Title VII because it can only happen once and redefine it and redefine that category. And I did that. But I did that with such amazing, people before me. And so when someone just jumps through it and goes, the merit of the case on Monday was argued on Macy v. Holder. Macy v. Holder was the argument presented. And 2 of the judges specifically just focused on that issue. I mean, that was the merit of the decision for trans individuals. So it's disheartening because it will be like I always knew it was going to be a footnote.
Yeah.
But it's very insulting to have it just dismissed because it was such an impact. And people have asked the question, Macy v. Holder already did this. It affects all the other titles. It has affected bathroom, elementary, school bathroom.
Accommodations.
Accommodations.
Healthcare.
You deal without sports. It literally led to housing changes in HUD. It led to changes within every department. So yes, it will reverberate through our government and have a everlasting effect. But we already had it. It was just codified by SCOTUS and given the thumbs up. But we've had it since 2012.
So my question is, and you touched upon this briefly, you won, but you really lost. You didn't get your job back. You didn't get the job that they promised you. You didn't get any job. If anything, your name became this little asterisk, this little black mark of, uh-oh, she's the one who went to court. She's trouble.
Yeah, so
what did that feel like?
It's so while you're going through it, you don't really have the process in hand. And I'll be going through, you don't have the processing power. I'll be going through it for the rest of my life. And it's strange because I was awarded an investigation, got it. I was awarded a back pay. They fought us on how much I was entitled to. They said only 3 months in that 3-month period. And we were like, well, it should be for the time period until the decision came out. So we had to fight and nickel and dime them just to get basic rights or pennies back. And I was told to have my job. The first thing I was told by the attorneys for ATF, the hired guns that they have, was, she'll never work for us. And they wouldn't. So at the end of the day, everyone gets a piece of it, and you have to pay, since there's a weird thing, it doesn't have any injury associated with it. So civil rights claims are taxable.
Mm-hmm.
So the federal government got more of the money than I ever did. And
Isn't that ironic?
Exactly. The feds paid me and then took it back. So the feds and my lawyers and everyone got more. So all to be said. So I started the process of going back into police departments in California. So I got myself certified in a different state, went through that process. And then I started applying to police departments. And I literally had a chief of police that did a chief's interview. I made it through every process. I was never turned down for one. I did polygraph, backgrounds, passed everything. But because I was a lateral, I just sat on the list and died. So you get a letter that says you'll be eligible for the next 24 months when we hire. But they don't have to put you on a ranking. They can put you in a pool. So I just died on every list. I was in the pool. And I literally had a chief tell me, he goes, so what's with this ATF thing? You a troublemaker? So they knew my process, and it was heartbreaking because I had people ask me about it in the interviews. What happened with ATF? They Googled my name, it came up. If you do a simple search, boom, there it is, there I am. And there's articles and stuff. So when you're doing the right thing and you're going through the process, you don't think, well, this is going to have a repercussion because I'm doing the right thing, right? And then when it's over and you're like, I did the right thing. And they're like, yeah, but that right thing pisses a lot of people off. And so I had to find and make my own way. I did radio and TV, and I've done contracting work and graphic design. It was good. I could still draw, and I knew how to make, stuff with my hands. But I never get to be a detective again and play in that arena. And I was really good at it. And it really sucks when you have something, like I always said, I won't write the perfect opera. I won't write, paint the best picture ever. But I was good at that. And
I also think that there are cases that might have been solved by you that nobody else might have solved.
Oh, I don't mean to brag, but we do come from a different perspective.
Yes.
And it's absolutely, you're seeing it right now in law enforcement. If you do not have individuals that represent the community that they're representing, you will never get the proper enforcement, but you will not get the proper representation.
Same in journalism. Same thing in journalism.
100%. It's really weird. You can write all the articles in the world, but unless, like you, there's a trans reporter, unless it is a trans perspective, but on top of that, not just a trans perspective, but the ability to articulate our experiences to others and bring that empathy and bring that I'm just like you. I eat cereal and, watch Star Wars, like everyone. Not as much, but the thing is, yes, I think I could have helped, and I can help. And I've done that. I've assisted with victim rights groups and family of unsolved crimes. So I think I bring something different to the table in a unique perspective, but I did as a detective too. I always just had a different perspective. And
as we wrap up now, just tell us where you are now and what you're doing now, and how are you and your wife getting on at this COVID pandemic? I mean, I got to tell you, my kids and I, thank God we're resilient. It's been a really rough couple of months, but we have survived, and I'm very glad to be back doing Rise Up. How are you and your wife doing?
We're doing really good, thank you. It's hard. She works in medicine, so she's a nurse. So she's been dealing with this for the last 3.5, 4 months. So it's really nice. I've taken and alleviated everything off of her, so she can just focus on de-stressing and giving her that space, because she needs that. They all need that. And I think when all this is done, there's going to have to be a serious look at the mental health opportunities that we can provide for these people. And because it's very stressful, you know, she's been doing this for a while, and she was in the military, and she's hardened, she's locked in, she goes in and does it. But we've asked a lot of a younger generation of medical professionals that, you know, maybe not have had that exposure. And I am so proud of them for just these. Everyone talks bad about millennials. They are stepping their game up. They have just handled their, you know, what they've needed to do and locked in. So it's been really good because she trains a lot in their new nurses, and they're just on the ball. So it's been hard, but I do want to say COVID is very difficult for a lot of people right now in stress of finances and health. And
yeah, it's not over, not by a long shot.
No, but the beautiful thing about being trans is we have developed such a beautiful community because we had to. You know, it's like we're in that, you know, we're hanging on to each other, you know, in that one little group, and we help each other. So I'm really proud of our community because through this, you can see that we've developed pre-COVID how to do Zoom meetings and how to stay digitally in touch with our friends and our pixels.
And how to survive alone, right? Yeah.
And we survive alone, and digitally, that's our voice to a lot of people. So I'm really proud of, I've spoken more to people since COVID than I probably did before COVID over the phone and Zoom but yeah, I wish people knew their history within our own community or the LGBT community, that Macy Beholder was a landmark decision that did something for so many people. And it isn't a beneficial to me, but if people could go back and, you know, big bear hugs for Vandy and Diane and Amy, who we lost. And, you know, that has been one of the saddest things.
Yeah, we became friends, and I was sad when she told me she didn't think she'd live to see the day, and unfortunately she didn't. But I like to think that maybe in some way she was able to look over and shepherd this to happen. Mia, I am so thrilled to be able to talk to you, to be able to see you, to be able to engage with you, and to share your story. So thank you again for joining us, and for everyone who's watching us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow Mia Marie Macy on Twitter. We're at Rise Up with Dawn. Links will be at the website, riseupwithdawn.com. And we'll see you whenever we have another Zoom meeting, or maybe even in the studio.
Thank you so much for everything, Dawn.
You're welcome. Don't forget to rise up.